I would like to start by first saying that today the She Coaches Core Committee brings this session to you from our global presence. I'm in US, Roshni is also in US, Anjani is in Nepal, and Surekha and Surbi are in India. So we all call ourselves the famous five, Karen, sometimes. Not because we are famous, but because we are five. Um, welcome, Karen, and I'd like to introduce Karen first. So, I have had the pleasure of knowing Karen for last 14 years. She was my trainer in the coach training program in London. And then I happened to move to South Africa. So Karen comes from South Africa. So I did my TA 101 with her in sometime in 2011 in Cape Town. So that is where our association began, and it continued well in over the years when I learned TA from her. So there's so much to say about Karen that I actually wrote it. So she started her people development journey in 2008. She's a professional coach. She's a teaching and supervising transactional analyst. She specializes in the field of education. She's an appreciative inquiry facilitator. She's an author. And she also is the co-chair in the Professional Standards Committee for International Transactional Analysis Association, which is the the International Association for TA. So Karen started her journey so Karen is my role model as to how to shape your career. She started in the field of well-being, health and well-being for people. She also dabbled in Tupperware, which I learned recently, and her connection with Shilpa on that. And she has shaped her career step by step. And do you know that 1% change that we call, and that builds to 37.8 degrees? That's what I've learned from Karen. So she keeps adding to it. She started her journey, like I said, in people development in 2008. And she has been a forerunner in making TA practical and understandable for communities in South Africa, for the country, for various organizations, and for coaches and for coach supervisors. So she mentors them. She does supervision because she's written a book, Transactional Analysis Coaching, which is now has been translated in Japanese already, and is being translated in French currently. And she also runs an online version of the coach training program, which is an offshoot of the program that we did in the UK called the Coach Practitioner. And if anybody asks me which program to do, I will only recommend this, especially if you're doing it online. So welcome, Karen. I don't know what I have left out. She's also a grandmother, which is a very important part of her life right now. And so welcome to the She Mantra community, and the floor is all yours.
Thanks so much, Smriti, and thank you to your community it feels like an honor to be invited to share some of the frameworks that I found so valuable for me. And I know it's a good evening for you in India. It's a middle afternoon for me here in South Africa, and it's a good morning for Smriti in the US. So I'm used to working across time zones, and it's a joy to meet so many of you from India. I was lucky to be invited to a conference in Coimbatore. It was in 2007, and I stepped out onto the ground, and it was warm, and it just felt like such a nurturing, welcoming space. So I've traveled to India many times, a lot of times to Bangalore. I've been in Chennai, had the joy of visiting Pondicherry with one of my Indian friends, been to a conference in Cochin. Then COVID came, and that put an end to traveling for a bit. But when we now, yeah, last year, it was such a joy to travel to Bangalore again, to meet some of my trainees actually in person. Many of them I'd met in the older days of traveling, but some new people had joined me online, and it was lovely to meet them. So I feel such a welcome always from the Indian community. What I'm going to miss online is that we're not going to eat any beautiful Indian food, and I'm not going to get those lovely aromas, but there it is. I'm sure Zoom's going to get there one day with kind of aromas as well. So let me share my screen and start with some of the visuals. We're looking at life positions. So this is a framework. It's a very basic framework from TA that Eric Byrne first wrote about in the 60s. And if you like, we can describe it as the way we view ourselves and others. So it's my beliefs about me and my convictions, or sometimes my assumptions about you. It's internal. It's got nothing to do with my actual or your actual circumstances. And we decide our position really early in our life. There's going to be a little bit of input, some diagrams, and then there are going to be moments for you to play with it in small groups or ask questions. So life positions, I'm okay, you're okay. Judy Hay in 1996 described it as windows on the world, which I think gives another element to it, because it's like, what's our attitude as we're looking out on people, on situations in relation to ourselves? Because it's always the I and the you and the they, the community as well. This model has been developed quite a lot to bring the collective and the context in as well. And the way we can think about it is, we all have good days and bad days. I'm sure sometimes you get up and you're just like ready to meet the world, and that feels like a good day. And other days you might be quite stressed and you don't believe in yourself as much as you normally do, or you seem to be hooked by other people. And this is a framework to help us understand that inner sense of who we are. It's as if we look through different colored lenses, and it takes us to, TA talks about our script, our set of beliefs and behaviors. Who do we think we are? And when we stress on a bad day, that might be less expansive. On a good day, our beliefs and behaviors might be really much more expansive and present. So this TA model gives us a framework to understand, how do we see ourselves? And equally as importantly, how do we see our clients as coaches? But we can't look at our clients until we've had a little bit of a look at ourselves. Another way of thinking about this is, what's my state of mind in the moment? So let's look at these 4 windows. And as I'm putting them up one by one, think about yourself as a human being and also as a coach. And there's going to be a moment for you to think, where do I spend a lot of my time in a typical day or a week? So the yellow window, that shorthand I plus U plus, stands for I'm okay, you're okay. So as I'm looking out at the you, this is my attitude, is problem solving. Let's just get on and do this. There's an optimistic attitude. If we're doing something together, it would be collaborative. It's a looking forward. It's an I can attitude. It's let's just get on and do this, whatever it is. The living, the coaching, the problem solving, whatever the task is. It's not to say it's going to be easy and fun and nobody will be upset. It's a real situation. We'll have real emotions, but we will respectfully hold them for ourselves and the other. A second window is the blue window, and this is where we've got a slightly different attitude. I minus, you plus. I'm not okay, you plus. So if in the yellow window, let's say I went to run a workshop in person and I got to the venue and there were no chairs put out, I would have said, okay, who do I need to call? How do we get the problem solved to find the chairs? If I got up that day and was choosing to look metaphorically out of the blue window, I would blame myself. I'd put myself down. I'd feel inadequate. I would, my inner chatter would be, oh, it's my fault. I did something wrong. I should have checked that there would be chairs. With this sort of attitude, we might be looking for approval. You know, tell me I'm okay. Have quite a low self-esteem, maybe often feel guilty or fearful, and get into a victim mentality. That's another framework from TA called the drama triangle. It's that poor me, wanting people to feel sorry for me type of attitude. Another window is the red window. So can you see this is the complete opposite in the sense of who's okay in my mind? I plus, you minus. I'm okay, you're not okay. So same scenario, get to the workshop, no chairs. And in my mind, if I go into the red window, I'm going to be blaming others. Huh, I should have known. This place is never organized. These people are not as good as I am. If I was doing it, it would have been organized. Do you get the sort of tone there? So quite competitive, defensive, critical, maybe mistrustful, frustrated, quite angry and aggressive, or the external aggression or the passive aggression as well, that when people go silent, but you can tell from their body language that there's a lot of blame coming your way. So those are three options of our inner attitude towards ourself and the other. And the last one in the gray window is I minus, you minus. I'm not okay, you're not okay. If I was coming from that window, that internal attitude, I probably wouldn't have even got out of bed to go and run this workshop. Never mind, were there chairs or no chairs. So I'm no good, you're no good, nobody's can do anything. So this is quite a dark place of rejection, despair, giving up, probably expecting myself and others to fail, no trust in myself or to others, and a kind of doesn't even bother attitude. And it's our early experiences of life that probably help us to get to the sense of, oh, which window do I play in? Does life feel safe? Am I okay enough and others okay enough? Or do I feel less than others or better than others or very despondent, just completely despondent? And there's an interesting thing to notice that often an external behavior of I'm okay, you're not okay, quite competitive and blaming, actually, if you had to work with that person, underneath, they've probably got quite low self-esteem. They're blaming themselves at a deeper level. So they try and show up in the world as quite an aggressive, controlling person. So I'm going to ask you in a minute, as a human being, thinking of yourself and your life, because you bring your humanness into your profession as coaches. Draw what I'm calling your blob. And I've given you some examples here of what your blob might look like. So I invite you to find a piece of paper, draw yourself quadrants like I'm showing now, and label them with that I'm okay, you're okay, the yellow, the I'm not okay, you're okay, blue, etc., etc. And then if you think of your typical day, your blob might look like that. So you might think, you know what, mostly I'm in a respectful place. I believe in myself. I believe in the others. Even when the going gets rough, I can stay there. I can be open and respectful. But sometimes, if I'm honest with myself, I do a little journey into the blue window and I get into a bit of self-doubt that I'm not okay, you're okay. And maybe very occasionally, I'll also go into the I'm not okay, you're okay, the judging. But you realize you very seldom go into that, the bottom left. Ooh, your blob might look like this. As you know yourself, you spend a reasonable time in I'm okay, you're okay. But when you get stressed, you know, like, boy, I'm just going to blame everyone else. It's their fault. Why are people so stupid? And then you might do a little bit in one or other of those windows. And I'm just reminding you of the diagrams of the two ego state models that you've met in the last two webinars. And as you work in pairs, think of now, you've already explored your ego states and your styles of communication. How might this inner attitude of okayness and not okayness impact your style of communication? So to first take, when you get into your breakout rooms, a few moments to draw your blob. Where do you go most? And then what sense are you making of that when you link it to ego states? Is that clear enough for the first bit of input and an opportunity to go and play? And then we'll come back and hear what you've learned. Thank you to, is it Surabhi who's doing the breakouts? Yes.
So just to clarify, we need to first draw our blog and then discuss it. Yeah, as to where.
It'll take you maybe a minute to think of, oh, what's my blob look like? And then share with your partner your blobs and what meaning you're making of how that impacts how you show up externally.
So last couple of slides, the audience wants to look at.
The blob slides or the blob slides?
The blob and maybe quickly the states.
Sure. So if you want to take a screenshot, I'm happy to make these slides available afterwards as well. But these are the clues to the different quadrants.
I think they want to with this slide. Yeah. Okay.
That's the quadrant, and there's an example of a blob. Kind of time in a week or in a day, whatever feels right for you. You will know yourself and go, oh yeah, I know myself. I tend to go into feeling less than others or feeling better than others or whatever it is. And it's very unusual that a human being will always only be in the I'm okay, you're okay space. Does that give enough clarity now for the breakout? The activity slide 2. Activity slide, let's come back to the slides. So it's drawing your blob and then discuss how your internal attitude, which is what your blob, it's a very untechnical term, isn't it? But it's your spread of where you are and I'm okay, you're okay. How does that impact your styles of communication in terms of ego states that you learned over the last webinars?
So, Karen, it's possible that some of the people who are here today may not have actually been through the previous sessions. Okay. So they can just discuss from their common sense understanding of the four windows.
Thank you. This was a very interesting experience. I'm sensing, even by the practicalities, because several people landed up being all alone in a room. And it was, now I wonder what happened to your sense of okayness. Were you blaming yourself and saying, I'm not okay, they're okay? Or were you blaming the organizer for not clicking right? So isn't it interesting to see in every moment something happens and we go, is it me? Is it them? I mean, this is saying that I'm okay, you're okay in very easy language. I would love to get a bit of feedback, and I want to link it to how we use it as a coach. So I'm tempted to move along and link it to ego states. And please, if you want to type something in the chat, we can pick that up at, towards the end as well. Let's remind you of the functional ego state model that you met. And this is a version of it that I created that gets it to join hands with the I'm okay, you're okay model. So you'll see this yellow box here that I'm outlining with my cursor that I've drawn around the positive version, the positive expressions of this. You might have met as the critical parent. It's got a I'm okay, you're okay version of it, which is structuring, but it's got an somebody's not okay here, mainly you, dominating version. This side you will have met as the nurturing parent, and there's a respectful nurturing, but there's an overdoing the nurturing. And that's called marshmallowing, when we're too protective, when we help too much as a coach. Here, the child ego state is also divided into an aspect that's in the okay box. When we cooperative, there's an I'm okay, you're okay attitude underlying that style of communication. But we can also sometimes, if you like, metaphorically jump out of the okay box and get into that somebody's not okay here, where we either get that adapted child submission way of being, or we push back and we rebel, we resistant. And then the other side of the child, the natural child, there's a respectful version, the spontaneous child, and also the very immature egocentric version. And of course, the adult is, if you like, in the moments, choosing as a coach, are we going to be firm and set boundaries? Are we going to do some nurturing? Are we going to be collaborating? Are we going to be curious, explore genuine feelings, ask curious questions? Because that implies that our inner attitude is, I'm okay, you're okay. If we jump outside of the box and we become critical as a coach, or we try and help our coachee by giving them all the answers and suggestions, or we get very cross and push back and we rebel, or we get anxious and just we step out of our power as a coach, or we're very egocentric and we want to show off as a coach, we've lost touch with our adult awareness. I've got beautiful hula hoops that I got, I think, my second trip in Bangalore. They're striated hula hoops that click together and they're large. And if I put them on the ground and I stand with one foot in the adult, I can only dip my other toe into one of the positive modes. If I try and do a stride into one of the negative modes, I've got to take my foot out of the adult and be both feet out of the box, which is a lovely metaphor for when we step out of our sense of okayness, we potentially land up as a coach being overcritical, over helpful, over trying to impress, or scared, or pushing back because we want to rebel against our clients. Let me pause for a brief moment to see if there are any questions.
Yes, there are. So there is one question. So Renu, do you want to unmute yourself and ask the question?
Sure. So, Karen, I wanted to understand if the life position that we take are different in professional relationships versus the personal relationships, and also if there is an overlap related to that.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Renu. You know, I think our basic life position develops in the first few years of our life. So almost our center of gravity, I think for most of us is, I'm okay, you're okay, most of the time, but then we learned when we were little, it's safer to believe in others more than myself, or it's safer to think I'm better than others. And we practice that. But I think with ongoing personal awareness and professional development, things will change. And probably who we are as a person, if it's authentic, it'll show through as a coach. I don't think we can put on a life position when we put our coaching hat on. Because it's not about technique, it's about a deep inner sense of humanity within me and within the other person. Does that make sense, Renu?
Yes, it does, Karen.
Yeah. Any other questions? Somebody's monitoring the chat if there's something relevant to pick up right now. All right, so let's go back. Oh,
sorry, Karen, there's a follow-up question, which I think you already answered. Does these life position change with experiences or life stage? So, yeah.
I think it's always evolving, and certainly experiences, different stages of our life, and the ongoing personal work that we do, particularly as coaches. So those moments of supervision and reflection on our work, sometimes when there are traumatic early events, it would be therapy that's needed from time to time. And I think ideally we want to be catching ourselves when we realize we're not in the I'm okay, you're okay, quicker and quicker to go, hang on, what's going on in me? Oh, I'm getting judgmental here. What can I do to come back into it's almost the belief in the existential okayness of the other human being. It's not saying we've got to approve of their behavior. There's the I'm okay, you're okay is a really deep sense of okayness, not in the person's essence, in their person's being. Because we can hold that belief, but still challenge behavior that's very definitely not okay. I think sometimes people think TA is saying, oh, we've just got to be all warm and fuzzy and love everybody irrespective of what they do. It's not that at all. So if we take it to a coaching conversation, have a look at this. Our internal attitude is going to impact how we respond to our clients. So here's an example of, at one point in a coaching conversation, the client maybe says, well, with this, remember, words don't often capture the ego states. You would have learned that if you were in the last session. It's the tone of voice, the look on the person's face. So the client might say, well, I knew that it wasn't going to be any different this time. It was a silly idea to think that I could give more focused instructions to him. So maybe this client is working on giving, being more of a clear, focused manager with her team. And there's this dejected voice. I just knew that it wasn't going to be any different. Can you hear what life position is there? Is that person feeling okay or not okay about themselves when they go, it's hard, it was silly? Where do you think they've gone? Somebody unmute and say, are they okay or not okay with those words and the tone of?
Not okay about them.
Not okay. So now you're sitting as a coach, you're picking up this person going, oh, poor me. And now if you were to respond from, I'm okay, you're not okay, the red window, that's when you get into the judgment. I'm better than you. Well, of course, you're just not ready to take such a big step. That might not be such a useful way as a coach. But you could also get hooked into the I'm not okay, you're okay. Sorry, that was probably a silly idea. I'm not sure if I'm the best coach for you. And get all apologetic and second guess yourself as the coach. But how would you respond from that I'm okay, you're okay place? Staying in your adult ego state, staying believing in yourself and the other, it might be something like this. You found that a challenge. Okay, let's explore and see what learning you can get from what happened. So being aware of where we tend to go with our internal attitude is really the foundation for how we respond. What's our style of communication as coaches? So if you're up to play with this, and I'm thinking maybe they're 4 in a room instead of 3, so that if some people can't make it, at least there are 2 people. And choose A is going to role play a client's comments. And I've given you 4 there. This is a time to screenshot the slide to choose from. And I've tried to put in the tone of voice, because that will make it different. And then the second person, B, as the coach, practices with 2 responses. How would you respond if someone says, let's take the last one, you don't seem to be helping me much here. If you were to role play, how would it be from when you didn't believe in yourself, I'm not okay, you're okay? Or if you went into, I'm okay, you're not okay. So try one of those, and then how could you do it if you stayed in the I'm okay, you're okay place? And hopefully there will be a 3rd or a 4th person, and they can notice what happens. Is that clear enough as a prompt to try out? When your client comes with a comment from a not okay life position, how do you, with awareness, stay grounded and presence, and I'm okay, you're okay? And what would your response be? So it's really important to end with a I'm okay, you're okay response. Start with one of the negative ones where you put yourself not okay or the other not okay, and get a feel for what the difference would be in what you say to your client. If we do 10 minutes for that, and then there'll be some moments for reflection, everybody. I trust your natural child came alive when you tried out ways of responding. Because for those of us who are more introverted, it's like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. But what good practice as coaches to think, how might I be hooked by my client to respond in a way that's not going to be helpful? So it's over to questions. What did you notice about yourself? What other questions does it invite about the model? We've got a good amount of time to work with conversation questions from the group.
So, Karen, can you just put up the model once again? Because we were getting a little, confused over there.
The I'm okay, you're okay model, the very beginning one.
No. The 11, slide 11.
Aha, that one. Okay.
Karen, I had a question, Aditi here.
Yes.
So we had a very interesting discussion in the group, and a couple of us shared the fact that every time our client goes in a I'm not okay zone, which is I minus zone, then
Yes.
sometimes we tend to probe a little further and ask them to articulate that feeling, like, hey, how does that make you feel? Do you feel frustrated, rejected, disappointed, and so on?
Yeah.
So do you see merit in that that line of questioning, or does it make sense to quickly turn it around, bring them into a I plus U plus zone, and then from there on do rest of the coaching? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, what a lovely question, Aditi. There's something in TA that talks about a bullseye transaction. So as a coach, from our adult awareness, there's something about acknowledging that I minus place, which is sitting mostly in their child ego state, to say, I can understand that sometimes you feel sad, challenged, whatever. But as a coach, we wouldn't explore that and how does that make you feel and tell me more, because that's taking us more into the realm of past therapy. But to go straight into, well, let's think about it in an I'm okay, you're okay place, probably won't serve you well, because the bull's eye is you've got to target the child ego state where that not okayness is sitting very briefly, which makes the client feel heard and seen and understood. Just with that phrase, I can understand sometimes you feel despondent. And what would you like to do about it? How shall we think about it? What are the options? Does that make sense? So the bullseye child, and then move straight in, and then into adult, but not just pretend they're not feeling what they're feeling.
Sure. Thanks. That's helpful.
other wonderings, questions, your own thoughts, how you've experienced yourself during the
So,
webinar?
Aparna, do you want to ask your question?
Sure.
No, it's not a question, but I noticed, Karen, that as we were going through the different sentences, the tonality was more or less the same, right? In the way you respond from each of those 4 quadrants. And it also gets translated into the body language as well. So it seemed like a similar, going statement, but it didn't vary much.
So that's interesting because, well, what sense do you make of that? That one person role playing from different places seems to have the same tonality. Can you make sense of that in your own way, Aparna?
Yes, of course, because each time you spoke from an I+ or a U- or any of those 4 quadrants, the tone was more or less the same. It came from either a space of I know it all or you don't know it. So you could kind of qualify those statements accordingly. So irrespective of the content, what I'm trying to say is not so much about the sentence, but when you're moving from those from 1 to 3 to 4 on all those quadrants, you are pretty much mirroring a similar kind of energy. And that was kind of insightful. It was a visual, we're doing it online, but if you were in person, you could have also picked up the energy that comes, the physical energy that comes in each of these statements, right? The body language is very different when you're coming from an I+ U- space, vis-a-vis an I+ and U. So all of that, I'm sure, was there, but it will be a lot more palpable if we are in person.
Yeah. And also remember, as we role play and exercise, we bring to life the one that's most familiar and comfortable for us. And we might struggle to do the other one. So it might sound quite similar. But what I'm hearing is you could really tell the difference between a respectful, I'm okay, you're okay, and one of the other negatives, which is a great insight. And I think the question then for all of us to ask is, as coaches, when we notice ourselves being tempted to go into I'm not okay or the client's not okay, how do we notice it and how do we come back to I'm okay, you're okay? Because that's code for being present. It's being mindful, it's being in the adult, it's being in the here and now, it's being fully connected to who we are. And that's where we do our best work as coaches. And it's often what is our practice outside of the coaching room. Meditation, mindfulness, yoga, exercise. That the more we do that, the more we can be present
Be grounded.
in that moment. When it's challenging, when our clients challenge us, or the topics they work with hook us as well. We need to be doing that work to stay. Firstly, noticing that we're going out of that yellow box of I'm okay, you're okay. And then, okay, so what can I do to get back? Thanks, Aparna. Lovely conversation.
Preeti,
Yeah,
you can
no, yeah. So Rekha, I was just, I'm glad that Karen brought that up because in our room, we were just discussing about that, one of the statements, and one of the partners in the room had this question, and then she said that in one of her coaching real conversations, this thing came up, when she became very judgmental and this, and was coming from I+ U- and became judgmental about somebody's infidelity kind of a thing. And how do you kind of then, as a coach, what is the best, how do you come back, or how do you? So I'm glad that you brought this up, because the answer was pretty much this, that the moment you realize that I'm going there where I'm becoming judgmental of my value system clashing with somebody else's value system, and how do you kind of check back and bring yourself back and know that from the coach's perspective, I have to be attached but then detached, be very detached. And so the very interesting conversation in our room, and I am so glad that you brought this up, and how do we come back? So thank you very much.
And if I just add a bit, Preeti, in terms of values, I think there are times if our clients' values are so contrary to our values, we have to make a call. Can I coach this person? Because we can't stay neutral if our deep values are being kind of abused or disrespected by our clients. And that's a call, because we all want to have our coaching clients and earn, but can we actually coach if there's a real clash in values?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I see a hand from Anuradha and then Shivani.
Yeah. Hi,
And
Karen. I just
someone-
wanted to kind of compliment you with this last exercise that we did. I think it was hilarious and we had a lot of fun, because typically as coaches, we are expected to kind of be all put together and be in the adult to adult communication. But when we did this, I think we did it, we over exaggerated the, minuses. And I think at the end of it, we were all laughing, and I think it brought to home things that we definitely should not do. So I think it was a great way of putting that learning across. And I think we thoroughly enjoyed ourselves.
Great.
So thank you.
There's another theory of TA talking about positive strokes, appreciation. So I'm taking your positive stroke. Thank you. Shivani. Shivani, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. Thank you so much. All I wanted to say was thank you for clarifying the values part, because I was thinking on the other side also, what if your and client values are very similar?
Yes.
Because I am actually going through some client right now. It's a very live situation. I feel that the person is kind of a replica, and I try, but sometimes, we go into like that thought, I know, and I don't want to be there, but I know. So
Yes.
any thoughts on that? And that would be very helpful.
What's an important question? Because I think you're absolutely right. If we feel almost, are we getting enmeshed, or we colluding with our clients because our values are the same? And this is where that reflective space, supervision, is really useful, so that we can go, hang on, I'm getting too embroiled in this now. How can I put my own self on one side? And because otherwise we don't serve our client well, we just collude with our clients. So I really can't recommend more highly, if you've never experienced supervision, it happens individually or in a group, particularly for moments like that with the clients.
I completely agree. Thank you so much for that. I think, as you already mentioned, some amount of self-work also helps, because out of my couple of months I'm working, it is only one session when I felt a little bit, maybe, but I have to really prepare for this particular one just because of this space. But thank you so much. That was very helpful.
Yeah, pleasure.
So, okay, so I have a small question, which is, you had mentioned there the client sighs or feels dejected or is passive aggressive and so on. Now, if the client is in a certain state, does it elicit some other ego state in us? Even though our normal state might be a particular quadrant, just because the client is in a particular state, does it elicit something else?
Yeah, absolutely. If you think of human beings, sorry, I'm just finding you again on my screen, Sareka, because everyone moved around. There we go. Got you again. If you think of us as human beings, coach and clients, a lot of the work happens between us in the relationship, in that relational field, if you like. So I can't be cold clinical Karen with my life positions and whoever's in front of me not be impacted, because life doesn't work like that. So I think that's where our growing awareness of ourselves. I know when I get hooked and I lose my presence, it goes back to some of my beliefs, and I'll share one of them with you. I didn't do university or postgraduate studying when most people did straight after their schooling. So decades later, I sometimes get hooked by people who come with 3 degrees and now they're working for their PhD. And I go, oh, panic, I'm not good enough. So I've got to be aware of that dynamic, and then to say they're working with me for a different reason, and those external pieces don't matter. So I think it's also, that's what keeps our work interesting, isn't it? Because with every client, we've got to fine tune. How do I do me in my most authentic, potent way with this person on this day? And it might be different with one client who we see, you know, this week and in 2 weeks' time. So it's that fine tuning. And we can't do that. And it's not a cut and paste. It's not an automatic thing. We've got to really be able to be in touch with ourselves. I think our primary relationship is with ourselves as a coach before we can be in relationship with a coachee. I don't know if I've answered you.
Yeah.
Gone off on a tangent.
No, I'm taking it that the relationship with self is, I think, the first one. And once we are aware of that, then we can, going into the right space when we need to.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks. Any other questions, additions?
Karen, may I add and invite the whole group that in TA, we bring up whatever comes to our mind and we let Karen sort it out for us. So if something is sitting with you, which seems half formed, say it as it is. We'll all learn from that.
Exactly. Every question, no question is silly. You're probably asking a question that someone else is sitting with as well. Vidwata.
Yeah, thank you. That bit was helpful for I'm not okay to come with the question. So what I found very helpful as we went through those questions and this model was not just with our own clients. This is very helpful if we look at it for teenage children and us. This model, if you look at it, I think our homes will change, our relationship will change. Because I could so much see whenever my child shares something with me, they will know from tonality that you think there's something wrong with them. If they say there's a fight, they had a fight, and I will ask, and what did you do? So they're like, you're not okay. You did something. So that
exactly.
So when we use that I am okay, you're not okay model, I just felt like, oh, I was saying I'm using this. And she tells me, you don't believe me, Mom. And I just tell her, I do. But I want to know what's really going on. But I never said what's really going on. I said, what did you do?
Yeah. So isn't that interesting, Vidwata? Just the tone or the words we choose can give that message of, I believe you, but tell me your side of the story. Not like, well, what did you do? Which immediately invites the person to think, oh my goodness, it's that they perceive you as critical parent, dominating, and they go into that defensive, scared, rebellious child, or whatever their version is. Yeah, this is a model of life, not just for us as coaches.
Yes. And even your glances, when I enter her room, or knock, she's like, what did I do now? The first question is from the rebellious child, that you are going to say something. Yeah. So I think this, if we can imbibe in our lives as parents with our children, this is going to help us a lot.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks. Gosh, I can't see the order of the hands. Somebody, Nita, let's go with you because you left on my screen.
It is Nita and Karen. We have about 5 to 6 minutes more.
Okay. So Nita. I think Nita has.
I think the current has just gone for but in the meantime, if someone else wants to just share something also, that's fine.
I just wanted to add to Vidwata's point about the roles changing between teenage children and parent. In fact, on a personal note, I feel that I struggle the most in my closest relationships, and I keep reminding myself that, hey, you're becoming a rebellious child, or there you go and you're becoming a controlling parent. But that's where the true struggle for me lies, in my closest relationships. And this model really comes in handy just to bring myself back to awareness. So I don't know, any thoughts on that? Do you think that you have some hacks which you would like to share with us?
I think you're saying something universal there, Aditi. We probably do really well in our professional life, but we struggle the most with our personal relationships, because that's where our family of origin stuff started. And yeah, in our ongoing relationships, we're trying to work out our script and who we believe we are. And I think it's just that bringing ourselves back to awareness, as you say. You know, there's a lovely cartoon about walking down the road and falling into a hole, and you don't know you're there. And then you walk down the street and you fall into the hole, but you realize you're there. And eventually you get out of the hole quickly, and eventually you don't even walk down that street. And I think that's a metaphor for awareness. We're already walking down the third or the fourth street because we're all quite aware of what we're doing, but we still get sucked into the not okay stuff and psychological games. But at least we have awareness and we get out of it quicker, and eventually we will not even go there in our dynamics, potentially.
Yeah, I'm on my 11th street, Karen, in one.
11th Street, yeah, I think there are many more than 5 or 6. And I think they keep on putting new streets along just when we think we've got one thing sorted out.
So I think with Nita has not been able to come back. Sudhika?
So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think we've just run out of time, but I think there is a lot more yet to go, right? The presentation, or you tell us,
This
Karen.
is the end. This is the end. I was just seeing a question from a partner that we are always the parent for the child. We don't transition to the adult ego states. There's a learning point. So, yeah, the sense of actually current reality is the adult, and the diagram that I showed you with the yellow box is a TA term called the integrating adult. And maybe this is a good place to end. The integrating adult is moment by moment we expanding our present-centered awareness, bringing in the good parts of the parent and the good parts of the child. We constantly getting a richer and richer experience of who we are, but in the moments. It's appropriate for me, it's appropriate for the other, it's appropriate for the context. And that's our journey all the time. How do I do more of me in my most authentic way? TA talks about growing, expanding our integrating adults. So my wish for you is that you continue your journey of doing more and more of you in your integrating adults, and your deep sense of okayness for you and the other and the group and the planets. So I've enjoyed an hour and a half with you very much. Thank you again to the team of 5 who set this up and made it happen.
So thanks a lot. And I'm actually currently in deep reflection. So I'm unable to even kind of say thank you to you because it's all there. But thanks so much. I think as coaches, a lot of us coaches are supposedly always to be in a I'm okay, you are okay state, because the fundamental of any coaching is that the client or the coachee is actually okay and they can solve their problems. And the more we keep that in mind, the better the coaching will be. But much more important is our relationships with ourselves and how much aware we are, as to what state we are in. And I think that was a beautiful exercise. But TA is something which we can find application to every field of life, whether it is coaching, whether it is parenting, whether it is communication, or even sales. So every interaction in life, I think we can apply that. And I liked that specific model of yours, which is the yellow box one. That gives us a lot of flexibility is the way I would look at it. And thank you so much for bringing that in. And I want to thank Smriti for bringing Karen in, because, oh my God, just 5 slides and we are blown. I mean, it kind of gives us so much of reflective space currently. So thank you very, very much, Karen. And maybe you will still get stream of questions even after this particular webinar. But I can assure you, each one of us who is right here is currently in that state of mind as to where are we most of the time. And I think drawing that blob itself was revealing to ourselves. So thank you so much. With that, I would like to end the third session of TA. And I hope this whole series, which is TA 1, 2, and 3, gave us a lot to think, a lot to reflect, and a lot to learn, from which we will be better trainers or better coaches or whatever profession we are, besides being great parents and besides being great human beings. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for being here. Always such a pleasure to have you. And thank you, all of you, for being here to receive this wisdom and learn together. Thank you.
Thank you to our dear famous five for always knowing what we want and what we need and bringing it to us in the ways that stick with us and are enabling us to just grow with each passing month here at SHEmantra as well. So thank you very much. And thank you, Karen.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you very much.
Bye. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Stop the recording, please.
Yeah.